Hello and welcome to this video about the phenomenal impact Mark Cavendish has had at the Tour de France since his debut in 2007. As a British cycling fan, I make no apologies for the fact that this is very British centric, and because he is frankly the greatest British sports person of my lifetime. Nobody else gets anywhere near his level and his longevity, frankly. Anyway, let's have a look at why that might be. This is a chart showing all of the British stage wins in the Tour de France up until the last year. It's very much a tale of two halves, or not really halves, before and after Cavendish. In the first 50 odd years of the Tour de France, British riders at the Tour de France, success was pretty sparse. We had the odd stage win here and there, but no real sustained success. And even when we look at my own Tour de France history since 1989, those stage wins are very few and far between. In fact, in the 32 years before Mark Cavendish's first victory in 2008, British riders only won 11 stages in 32 years. Since then, we've won 53 stages in 16. Of those 11 stage wins as well, over half of them, 6, were time trials. In my first 19 Tour de France's I watched as a fan, British riders won just 3 road stage wins before 2008. And Mark Cavendish comes along, and in 2008, he wins 4 road stages on his own. Before that, we British riders had only won multiple stages in the same Tour de France 3 times, with two stages in 1967 and 1969, and 3 stages in 1973. And Mark Cavendish really opened the door for British riders and his success. We've only had 16 stage winners in total, Adam Yates becoming the 16th in this year's Tour de France. Before Cavendish, in 95 years of the Tour de France, or 95 Tour de France's, we'd had just 8 stage winners. So since Mark Cavendish's first stage win in 2008, we've had another 7. The number's doubled, basically. And again, the depth is there as well. In 2023, we have 31 active full World Tour pros from Britain. In 2006, when Mark Cavendish and Geraint Thomas were trainee professionals, if you like, there were just 4 other full professionals from Britain at World Tour level. Bradley Wiggins, David Miller, Charlie Wiggales and Roger Hammond. So we've gone from 6 professionals to 31 in less than 20 years. It's absolutely remarkable. Admittedly, of those 6 professionals, 50% have either won the yellow jersey or the green jersey in the Tour de France. So quite a good 6, but nonetheless just 6 to 30. And actually, when we look at it internationally, since Mark Cavendish's Tour de France debut in 2007 and up until this year's Tour, the Isle of Man was the second most successful nation in terms of stage wins. Only France had more stage wins. And actually, for a large part of Mark Cavendish's career, he'd won more than France over the same period of time. The Belgians are closing the gap thanks to Philipsen's multiple stage wins this year, but it is still an absolutely phenomenal record when you consider that the Isle of Man is basically Mark Cavendish. They had one other rider who rode the Tour de France a couple of times, Pete Kennaugh, but he didn't win a stage. And I think the most remarkable thing, though, about Mark Cavendish is his win rate. If he's there or thereabouts, he almost always wins at the Tour de France. He's only had 49 top only. I mean, still quite a big number. He's had 49 top 5 finishes at in Tour de France stages, but 34 wins. If he's in the mix for a stage win effectively, he wins 70% of the time, which is absolutely staggering. People don't have that sort of record. And actually, Cavendish's record, you could argue, deteriorated slightly after his first couple of Tour de France's. In those first 4 years, after the first 4 tours after his first stage win, from 2008 to 2011, he only had 24 top 5 finishes, but won 20 times. Absolutely remarkable. And really, the only period where he didn't win more than he won where he was there or thereabouts is during the era where Mark Kittle was dominant from 2013 to 2015. You can see there's a few years where he didn't win any stages, and that's injuries, crashes, etc. that's taken him out, and 2 years where he wasn't selected for the Tour de France. But to have that level of success over such a long period as well is absolutely remarkable, particularly for a sprinter. I've prattled on for long enough now about Mark Cavendish and what a phenomenal cyclist he is. Like I say, I think he's the greatest British sportsperson of my lifetime. I can't think of anyone who comes close for the longevity or the excellence and the sheer impact on the sport, especially on a sport that isn't traditionally a British success story. Anyway, if you have any feedback, any questions, any comments, please let me know. Otherwise, thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.